Hi everyone, this is Christina Barr and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. Today, we're going to be talking to a friend of mine, a TikTok friend of mine. She's been on my Let's TikTok about it, but we're going to have a more kind of solemn topic of the day, talking about what is the news of the week. And really, the biggest thing, I guess, in the past really 20 years is how we just really, Biden botched this pullout of Afghanistan. I'll be talking to Jen Rader. She is a buddy of mine, and she was over there. She served over there. Saw some terrible things over there, which we're not going to get too into. We're not going to get into that. We're just going to pretty much deal with the reaction and the what's going on right now. And I hate the feeling. It's not a feeling. I guess it's a fact. There's so many people who served, who feel like what they did was for nothing, and that's not true. But I hate that we have done something to make people feel that way, and especially the commander in chief. So there's a lot of terrible things that we're hearing coming from over there. She'll be on about in a half hour. First, I want to tackle this critical race story point of view that I saw someone cover a story on TikTok, and I responded to it. And man, TikTok automatically flagged me. I didn't even have any views on it, and so they flagged me for community guideline violations. So I'm banned on my main account right now from posting until like tomorrow, and then I have my backup. But I filmed it like 3 times, so I'm gonna talk about it. I'm gonna talk about it. So there's this case in Ohio where a black woman was sentenced for theft and a white woman was sentenced for theft at the same court, same prosecutors, and so they're like, well, we need critical race theory to analyze what happened in the systems to say why this white woman is just on probation and why this black woman is getting time. And I'm like, there's a lots of other things involved in the case that we want to talk about. So before I jump into that, I do want to encourage you all to go to blacktnews.com, check out different articles that I've written, other content. You can watch videos on there, see where I am on all my social media platforms. I do want to thank Brighter Michigan PAC for allowing me to use their studio. If I say something today that offends you, they don't care. I don't care. It doesn't work like that. I'm just using the space, and I'm thankful and grateful to them. So for Triggered, you just gotta, I guess, not watch, but or be mature enough to, I don't know, come up with a good rebuttal, have a conversation. But they don't care. They don't care. But I do appreciate the space. Please make sure you go to blacktnews.com, check out the different merchandise that I have. Like that I voted for Trump and all I got was this historic peace deal, border security, ISIS destroyed, etc., and this lousy t-shirt. I'm not the victim you're looking for. I love this goat hoodie. I keep saying it. It's so comfortable. I got them in different colors. You can also get them in t-shirts. I got those available. Be better, not bitter. Got stuff with the Black T logo on it. The Constitution is a glorious liberty document. You are not that special. I adore this shirt, and I also have it in coffee mugs. So you can go ahead and get some of that merchandise, that sweet, sweet merchandise. So first thing I want to talk about, I do like to start off with a meme. I had a little audio trouble yesterday. And so when I was explaining this Babylon Bee post, I don't think this audio was quite working, so I wanted to show it again. I did post it on my social medias, but the Babylon Bee said, Democrats promise to make sure every American stuck in Afghanistan receives a mail-in ballot. It's terrible. It's funny, though, because that is something that is more kind of their speed, something that's kind of more of their priorities. And with the mail-in ballot. So it just did a little something that I think is true to them. But honest to God, I think most people are pretty horrified at what's going on. And there are people trying to run cover for Biden and trying to make some excuses. The people who try to blame it on Trump are just like blowing my mind. Because if you're trying to say, well, Trump had an agreement and Biden had to honor that, Biden doesn't give jack squat about any sort of agreement that the former President Trump had. Just like Trump didn't care about the bad deals Obama made. He got out of them, and then Biden would get out of whatever he didn't feel was acceptable. But anyway, he had an interview with George Stephanopoulos, and he said that he still would have, regardless of Trump's deal, he still would have wanted to get out anyway. And he's been wanting to get out for a long time, so you really can't blame this on Trump. And then Trump wouldn't have got out the way that he got out anyway, period. So you can blame a lot of different people for us being there that long, for the mission kind of evolving into different things, for not pulling out earlier than when they said they were going to pull out, or a nation building. And you can have all kinds of discussions, but what is happening right now, you can lay that at the feet of Biden. And so I don't know what all the aftermath is going to be. Kamala and Biden, I'm hearing that their teams are very frosty. Calling it the shade war, but we shall see what happens along those lines. Mark Levin went on a glorious rant about how Republicans need to man up and have at least conversations about Biden not being competent enough to lead. And it's not so much that he's not competent because he's declining or whatever, but he's never been competent enough to lead. But the wrong person in charge is dangerous, obviously. But I do want to show this other comic that I found last night. I retweeted it, and Donnie D. Danko. This is some glorious trolling right here. This is someone who is passionate about their craft. If you're unaware, Marvel has a What If comic book series throughout the years where they have situations where they do What If, and right now they have a show where they're doing, like, I guess from their cinematic universe doing like What If series. So like they had one with Peggy Carter, What If She Was Captain America? And so this is kind of going that span. They have Joe Biden in the little corner with his face looking all, I don't know, zoned out. It's 0 cents. That's a really nice touch. And the watcher is looking at all this terrible stuff. And I wish it was a what if situation and a bad dream. I wish a lot of things that were going on were a bad dream right now. But unfortunately, it is reality. If you guys have any questions or comments, make sure that you can hit them up in the comments, especially when Jen gets here. I do look at them as I go lives, and sometimes I display them. So I do see some people in the viewing right now. So if you got anything, let me know in the comments. But I really like that What If comic. That took a lot of work. So let's get to the story of the day. Well, before this big story of the day, but the topic I want to talk to before Jen gets on, critical race theory. So I saw this video today, and actually I saw someone's response to it, and then I went to the original, I tried to respond, and I did end up getting banned for a little bit while I responded, because I think I had the word, I don't think, I had the term racism in the title of my response, and I think TikTok just automatically flagged that, and they flagged it for hate speech, which my sisters pointed out. How'd you get flagged for hate speech? You're talking about critical race theory, you're black. And I'm like, how can I be flagged for hate speech? Because you can't assume that I'm racist because I don't possess the institutional power to be racist. Therefore, how can I be saying hate speech? So anyway, here's the video of this case, covering this case in Ohio, where there's 2 different women who both robbed basically the taxpayers, but one's white, one is black, and they got sentenced differently, and they're trying to say this is why we need systemic racism. And so I will play this video, and I will give you my thoughts on this case and on this video and all the people who try to push this narrative.
Hey, meet Carla and Debbie. They were sentenced by the same Ohio court one day apart for similar crimes, and although they had different judges, they had the same prosecutor. Carla pled guilty to 1 count. Debbie pled no contest to 22 counts. Carla stole $40,000 and went into voluntary treatment for a gambling problem. Debbie stole $238,000 over the course of 20 years. Carla was facing a maximum 3 years in prison. Debbie was facing a maximum 60 years in prison. And remember, they had the same prosecutor? He recommended 12 months for both of them. Carla got 18 months in prison, 6 months more than the prosecutor asked for. Debbie 2 years probation, no prison time. Aren't you interested in examining the system in place that allows this type of disparity to happen? Well, that's critical race theory. Not calling any one individual racist, but examining the system in place that allows this type of thing to happen. And if you're against that, then you're cool with this, and you don't want to see things change.
Okay, so first and foremost, you guys know how much I despise critical race theory. You know I despise it. Okay, critical race theory is not just about analyzing systems and to see what's good, what's bad. Like if that was a thing, like to just observe what's going on in society, to do it objectively, and to be a critical thinker when you look at the data, then we could do something there. We could do something with that. Unfortunately, that's not what critical race theory is. Critical race theory comes with an assumption already there, already in place. So the issue with critical race theory, with this case in particular, is that there's too many variables involved. Of course, with most things, there's too many variables involved. So let's look at the details of this case. So the root, his source, he kept saying that he posted the source. And the source is the root. If you follow the root at all, you know that's a really messed up source. I mean, obviously very biased in their coverage of things. I mean, like, if you go to my website, of course there's a bias of things, but because I'm talking the perspective of a Black conservative. The root is like really, really left wing. It's like Black issues, really, really left wing. So that's where so when people comment like, you left some things out, he's like, well, I posted the full article from the root. Not even like the local paper, from the root. So what's remarkable about it is that this woman, both women, okay, so Debbie is white, Carla is Black. And Debbie, she embezzled a lot more money over a long period of time, like 20 years. Carla embezzled a lesser amount. Debbie was a clerk, but Carla, she worked at a high school. So when I was telling my sister about this case, and I got through a couple of details, and I said, so she embezzled money from a high school for like $40,000. Her eyes were like, and she's like, this one thing is worse than the other, definitely. And I don't know how many of you out there have gone to a school or been a part of a school system where there was corruption and people stealing money, but it sucks. It sucks. So I replied to this person a little bit, and he's like, oh, well, he just took it from the employer. I'm like, no, she stole it from the class of 2018. That's who she stole the money from. So first things first. So they're saying it's from the same place, same court, same prosecutor, and the prosecutor both wanted them to do time. But he dismissed that they had different judges, like that didn't matter. I was at an event yesterday at the Lebanese Chamber of Commerce, and they had a panel with different local judges. And one judge, they were talking about how they don't like Zoom. They like Zoom for some things, but they don't like Zoom for criminal cases. And so the reason why they don't like it for criminal cases is because they like to look into their eyes, and they like to gauge, are they sincere? Do they have remorse? They want to make sure that they're not in their home wearing like wife beaters and being casual. They want them to come to the court, respect the court, like they understand the gravity of the situation. So there's always a human perspective to these things. Always. And unless you want like mandatory minimums for all these things, which people on the left definitely don't, there's going to be a human element. So to just ignore the fact that they had different judges as if that wouldn't play a part is crazy. It's absolutely insane. So there's that. That's a very, very big variable. So again, Carla is black and Debbie is white. So they're making it seem as though Carla got sentencing and has to go to jail, and Debbie's just on probation because of systemic racism. So they're not saying that they're saying critical race theory, and they're, this case in particular, they're not trying to allege that anyone is specifically racist, but it's the system. Who's participating in the system? Because the judges, they're the ones who have like the pass the sentencing, right? So how are they not racist in the scenario? They're racist, and apparently you're saying other judges and so on are racist, and the root really puts this in a weird way. I mean, how they write it, they bring up the fact, and in the history of America, there isn't one documented case of a Holly sending a Debbie to prison. Yes, we actually checked. So they think it's relevant that the judge is white, and they think it's relevant that Debbie is white, because they think the judges are racist. But they think white people are racist and the system is racist, and they don't want to change the system because the system benefits them. How is this sort of assumption supposed to help society? Just creating a hyper racial world. And of course, racism has existed, and it's been worse throughout history. But to have a case like this where there's different variables, and to assume that two different individuals who they both committed theft, but it was like different years, different victims, like that you can go, oh, it's because of racism and the system. That is not helpful. That you cannot analyze the facts and you have to just assume that. That is evil. That is evil. So let's go on. Again, Debbie is white, Carla is black. Okay, so Carla, she embezzled like $42,000 from a high school in Ohio, like in the Clevelandish area. And so that's obviously, I think, a lot for like a high school to just embezzle out of the class of 2018. So when she got fired from her job, she decided to liquidate her pension. So in an event that they're charged for crime of theft, the state would take the pension and they would use it to pay back the money that they stole. But, I'm sorry, I see I'm kind of going in and out with like syncing up with the audio. But she took the money out. So in the video that I played earlier, they try to make it seem like it's important and it's valid that she's going to get help for gambling and all this stuff. However, the judge might have taken that into consideration, or the fact that her pastor thinks that she's a good person and she's taking spiritual counseling. But she could look at the fact that she took out that money, and she said, you know that money could have been paid in restitution for what you did. So the judge can't all the way take her sincerity seriously if she's really feels guilt for what she did, because she could have taken her pension to pay back what she had did. But she didn't. She took it for herself for bills. And she claimed, well, I didn't know about that law that they would take the money and seize it to pay, what I stole back. Okay, but you know that you stole the money. You know that you stole the money. So she's personally paid back like $5,000 out of the money that she stole, but that's it. So she got 2 years. Now let's go to Debbie. Debbie has been stealing money for a long time. And she's been stealing $20,000 like a year over the course of like 2 decades. And when she finally got caught, she started paying the money back. Before she was charged, she started paying the money back. And they were able to seize her pension. And because they were able to seize her pension, because she had like 238,000, I think, is what she stole. But she started paying it back, and they took her pension, which was like $200,000 or something like that, and they were able to pay it off. So she's on probation. So I mentioned that in the comments to this guy, and someone in the original video that I saw that had stitched it made the point like, Debbie paid the money back. And so his point is, you think poor people should have to pay and have to be sentenced, but people who have money shouldn't have to be sentenced? Carla would have money if she hadn't taken out her pension so she could get away with a couple dollars after she had been caught. Debbie had enough sense to say, the jig is up, let me pay it back. Carla said, let me squeeze out a couple more dollars. That's what happened. My opinion isn't that if you're poor, you should have to suffer more than someone who has money. My opinion is that you did the crime and you need to be held accountable for that. Period. And part of going to the fact that Carla stole from a school, like judges take into consideration the victim and how were they harmed. So that they had the same prosecutor and he wanted them both to do time. But in Carla's situation, he got to say, Carla is stealing money from kids. That's what he got to say. You don't think that made a difference? When they did the sentencing, when they were considering whether it was going to be probation or 2 years or whatever? I think that makes a difference. And I think what she did was worse. And I know the other person took more money, but you over a long period of time, but you're talking about taking out $40,000 from a school year. That's not just like a magic that poofs go out of nowhere. Like, people need that money. That was like for yearbooks and other kind of stuff like that for the class. Again, I don't know if you've ever been in a school district with people who mismanage money, people who steal money, but it is not good. It is not good, period, to steal. I can't stand theft. But it's definitely not good when you're taking from kids, money that's set aside for kids. So that's what she did. That's what she did. I don't think their crimes are quite the same. I wouldn't weigh them the same as far as their impact. And especially what they did after the fact when they got caught. Especially after the fact. And another thing when you consider that the purpose of people being punished is they have to pay a debt to society. Debbie started paying her debt back. Carla still owes. If her pension was seized and they were able to pay off the money that she had stolen, I think we'd be in a little bit of a different situation for her, probably. But it definitely impacted whether, she felt real guilt for what she had done, because she took out her pension and tried to get away, I guess, scot-free. She took $42,000 and she wanted a little something more. And you can't say, you can't say that she didn't know something was wrong because she liquidated her pension. So no, they're not the same. But because of systemic racism, you have to assume that because there's some kind of disparity, that racism is at play, that it can't just be two different people being judged differently because of the certain variables. Critical race theory and all these people obsessed with it and all these activists want to assume racism. And that's no way for our society to function. And the root phrasing it that way, the way they phrase their article and that guy who phrased his video that particular way, I question their motives. I really question their motives. Because if you're suggesting that women like Debbie deserve some kind of mandatory minimum and she should have served a sentence, that's one thing, which I don't think people really love the idea of that anyway. But I think they're what they're really trying to say is that Carla was misserved because some kind of great racial injustice was committed against her. And if that is the case, that is garbage. She got what she deserved. She absolutely got what she deserved. And there was no point to even mentioning that one of them was black and one of them was white. Other than the fact that you're chasing your narrative. Other than the fact that you're chasing a narrative. So, I said all that to say and to point out that critical race theory is garbage. And it's not always racism. It's not always racism. Sometimes you're just a bad person, period. So I see my guest is here. She's a little early, but she's here. So I want to go ahead and go into it. If she's thumbs up, you ready? Okay. So this is Jen Rader. Some of you may know her. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, buddy.
I know you had a little, well, it's been rough past couple of days for America and the world in general. And
Hold on. I'm trying to figure out what feedback from. Because I can hear myself. This is weird. I don't have anything else open.
what about now? Is that better?
Mic check. Oh, yes, much better.
Okay. I did something on my end. Okay, so how are you doing, first of all?
I mean, the past, I guess, 4 or 5 days has been a bit of a struggle. Like I've been explaining to people over and over, which, I mean, I'm glad everybody's been like reaching out and checking up on me, but so I allow myself to feel like the traumas of Afghanistan like once a year, and that's always June because that's when the things happened. So I'm always prepared for it, but I was not prepared this time around. I was not prepared to have to reopen those wounds, and it's kind of been forced upon me. And I can't speak for every veteran, but for, my battle buddies that I've talked to, it's kind of been the same thing. Things have just been reopened very unexpectedly. And yeah, it's been a bit of a struggle. I'm emotionally drained, to be honest. Like, I don't know if you've noticed, I haven't really put out much content. Like, yeah, I've been live, but I haven't really put out much content. I've just been in this funk trying to snap out of it.
You were live like for 3 hours last year. Yeah, it wasn't like
oh, last night me and Canceled were live for like 6 hours just talking.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I know there's people out there who are like, it feels like it was all for nothing. I want to thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And I wouldn't say, obviously, I don't think it was for nothing. And even when I think back that my family does a lot of missionary work and stuff, but when my dad first went to Pakistan and was talking to some of the people over there, even like the presence, some of the stuff that was what they were doing in Afghanistan, other places, also helped kind of tamper down the government being oppressive to the Christians in like Pakistan, where my dad was. So it's amazing what America can do and accomplish when it's strong.
Yeah. It's funny that I guess not really funny, I don't know, but I guess it's ironic that you mentioned that, because I was just talking to Kat about it this morning, because she said that, one of her points was, you have like this has been going on for 20 years, we've been over there, and so you have like women that's 20 years and younger that know the freedom that we've given them, and now it's getting stripped away. And I said, the good thing about the fact that you have this young generation there in Afghanistan that felt that freedom, now maybe once it starts getting taken away, that'll give them something to fight for, stand up. And I don't really know how much they'll be able to fight, but I mean, it'll hopefully motivate them to try to stand up for what's right. And some of it's happening. I don't know if you saw that there is a protest going on over there. The Taliban, so they've been taking down the Afghanistan flag and replacing it with their flag. And there was a big protest that was going on where they were fighting to not get that flag taken down. And I mean, the Taliban just opened fire on them. But, there is a little bit of resistance that's happening over there.
Yeah, and there needs to be, but I mean, some people think we're just reverting back to how things were, but there's with the median age over there. I heard just Ben Shapiro say it was like 18 and a half or something. So there's a lot of young people who aren't accustomed to Taliban rule, and they're
Hmm.
accustomed to freedom and liberty. So hopefully they will fight back and not stand for this. But I wish our our government wouldn't have put them in this sort of situation. And now they're just kind of like, well, these people, they don't want to fight. And I get there was a lot of Afghan people who in the military who have died protecting and in fighting over the years. And so I don't think it's his portrayal is totally fair, but Biden is like, no one would have left this way.
Right. And I will tell you, like I told other people that, when he finally left Camp David and gave that speech, what was that, Monday or Tuesday night or Tuesday afternoon? Um, for the most part, I agreed with everything that he said. We were over there for way too long, and why should we stay there and um put our military at risk for a country that really ultimately doesn't want to fight for themselves? Because yes, there are some people over there that are fighting, and there are, I think that it's like 60,000 of them have over the past 20 years were killed fighting alongside of us. But as a majority, based on my experience, they run at the first sign of danger. And it's like it's no wonder, like if you see what happened, the Taliban took over Afghanistan with ease because they're a bunch of cowards and they ran away. Now, I'm not saying that some of them didn't fight. Obviously, some people are over there fighting, but for the most part, they're a bunch of cowards that ran away, left behind all the equipment that we gave them. They had all the tools to keep them at bay, and they fled. And it's like that's, I think, very frustrating for those of us that was over there helping to train and patrolling alongside them and teaching them what right is, and showing them how to defend themselves, and they just left.
So what do you think? I guess is missing that instinct there to, I guess, do they just need to feel freedom kind of slip away before they're ready to fight back? Like, what do you think it is?
I mean, honestly, I really don't know, because I mean, I kind of experienced something very similar in Iraq. Um, that I feel like the Iraqis were a lot more to defend themselves than what it seems like Afghanistan is. And I've also had experience with the Jordanians, because they were one of our people that we were out there with. And they're the same thing. Like, I don't really know what it is. Like, I guess they don't have that instinct. And maybe, like I said, maybe now that they had that little bit of taste of freedom and it starts to get taken away from them, then maybe they'll be like, whoa, 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 I don't like this. And maybe they'll stand up. But at that point, is it too late? So I don't really know. I don't know what it is. I mean, it would help if they had a government that cared about their citizens, that didn't flee with $169 million worth of cash and just, leave their people to be slaughtered. I think that that's probably where it starts, is having strong leaders that motivates them to stand up for their country.
Well, it doesn't have to be the leaders, I guess, but they do need to have some people who are willing to stand up to start something. But yeah, that's a shame. Everybody fled, and um, it's unbelievable. The images that we're watching, the planes take off, people falling. And Sky News, they reported that women were throwing their babies at soldiers over barbed wires, just begging them to take it. And just hearing about it, talking about it, reading about it, just it makes me physically ill.
Hmm.
Um, and I know this is like the hot news. I don't know how much longer I can talk about it.
Yeah. I hear that. I feel like we've been definitely, like, this has been the main thing that we've all been talking about all week, on and off camera. Like, it's just been nonstop. And it, like I said, I'm emotionally drained. And I think that a lot of people, especially those of us that watched 9/11 happen, this is all, I really hate saying it, but this is all just re-triggering, because we're seeing people falling from planes, and we're remembering the people falling from the towers, and then we're looking at how Afghanistan is now, and it's like that's what it was 20 years ago, and it's just everything's undone, everything.
Do you remember where you were on 9/11?
I do. I was in high school. I was in English class, and one of my classmates come running in the classroom and was like, America's just been attacked. And we're just like, whatever, man. Cause he was like the class clown and we're like, whatever, dude.
Mhm.
And so like, we're all laughing at him, teachers telling him to get out. So he turns, our TVs were like mounted like up in the corner by the door. And he turns the TV on and flips the channel. And we're all just like, oh my God. And so there was no classes the rest of the day. We're still in school, but there's no classes. We were all just watching everything unfold. And then where I'm from in Ohio, we are very close to the tank plant where they make tanks and stuff. And so we thought that because obviously security is going up, we're like, oh man, like we could end up being a target because of the tank plant. And I'm just watching all this unfold. And then we start deploying, and I'm like, man, I just signed up for the army. Like, what the heck? Like, obviously, I hadn't left yet, but I was like, dang it. Like, I just signed up for the army. Well, it looks like I'm
Oh
going
wow,
over to the
so
Middle
it
East.
just happened. Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, I was on the delayed entry program at that time because I was still in school. But yeah, I was just like, oh, well, this really sucks. Like, I guess I'm going to war, you know? And yeah, that it's just it was one of those things. It was unbelievable, and we're watching everything unfold. And I tell people this all the time, and it maybe this sounds really like horrific to say, but I miss September 12th, 2001, because the country was united. We were all like everybody was patriotic and just and it was back to like love thy neighbor. You
Yeah.
see people you never see before, and just all these strangers, and everybody's just kind of gives you that little smile, and people are hugging, and just it was just one of those feelings that's like everybody was patriotic, everybody cared about America. And then I think we all forgot, not all of us, but a lot of people forgot, and a lot of people haven't experienced it. And I don't know.
I remember having conversation with people like we need a unifying leader, and I love Trump, but he's not that person. But neither was Obama.
No,
So I'm like,
no.
the last time I remember something like that, and I reference back to like 9/11 after we attacked and Bush being at ground zero, and it's like we can't hear you. Like, well, I can hear you, or they can hear you, and the world will
Mhm.
hear us. And so, like moments like those, like it was totally different. And I was in middle school. I was in seventh grade when that happened. And I remember there were kids like, "Are we going to be able to go home?" Just decided to go home. I'm just like, "This is really serious. What's happening?" But they
Yeah.
they did send us home because I don't know, maybe they might have been concerned or something about maybe not seriously concerned about like the area or something being hit. But they sent us home, and I just watched the news for the rest of the day. But yeah, it's horrifying. And there's so many people who were born after that, who don't obviously can't remember that time, and because it was before their time, and don't quite understand, I guess, the gravity of some things. Or having a discussion last night about and a lot of people at like Bible study, and some of them like didn't really remember because they were too young.
Hmm.
But did you catch Biden's interview with George Stephanopoulos last night?
I think I saw somebody post a short clip, and I couldn't even finish listening to it because when and you have to understand, I have to be really careful about what I say, especially about the president.
Hmm.
But when he said something along the lines of this outcome was going to happen either way, like I don't remember what he said verbatim, I had to change it because I was getting so mad because it's like, no, like, okay, yes, I think the Taliban would have made some sort of progress. I mean, if we think about if this was last year, right,
Hmm.
and say we get pulled out, first of all, Pompeo would have had an exit strategy. It wouldn't have just been we're going to pull out because we want to meet this date. It would have been there would have been some sort of a plan to make sure that our citizens and our allies got out of there safely. I mean, former President Trump even said the first thing that he would have done is blown up our bases and equipment. Anything that we couldn't take with us, we would have destroyed. I don't really know how true that is, just because I know what the pullout in Iraq was like, and it was a lot of we're going to give this to the Iraqi army and our for our host nation people there. So I don't really know how if that would have actually happened, but there would have been some sort of an exit strategy. I do think that the Taliban would have started to make progress, but President Trump is, for the most part, a man of his word. And, he said, if you step out of line, we'll be back with a vengeance.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, right now, we don't have that, the world does not have that perception of America right now.
Mhm.
So that's why the Taliban was able to make the progress that they made as quickly as they did. And I mean, I think it would have happened either way, but I think if they would have at least had an exit strategy to get our people and our allies out of there first, then screw it. Let the Taliban have Afghanistan and we'll deal with it later or something. Or just let them be,
I mean,
I don't
shouldn't
know.
have been like get rid of like documents, intel, whatever, destroy that first, get the people out, and then like work on the equipment and then pull the troops out. Shouldn't have gone something like that.
I mean, it should have. So, as far as the equipment goes, and this is the way it was explained to me when we were pulling out of Iraq, because I was asking, I'm like, why are we giving like, or we're supposedly selling our equipment to the to Iraq, and I was like, that why are we doing that? Like, why am I seeing the Iraqi army driving around in our Humvees and our trucks and stuff? And they said, well, it's cheaper for America and it makes more logistical sense to leave it versus trying to ship everything back to
Mhm.
America or wherever the installations they came from. So I don't know about the equipment. I feel like those drones that are like $3 million a piece, I feel like we would have figured out a way to bring those back. Some of the other, like the weapons themselves, I feel like we would have found a way to bring them back. But as far as the trucks and stuff, I don't know. But yeah, it should have been something along those lines of um, anyone that knows anything about like military strategy, and this isn't me giving out any type of like top secret anything, this is something that you can learn from the movies before anybody tries to come at me. But if you think about what's going to be more strategically sound, it would be to, so we don't technically have a front lines there in the Middle East because we're in like an urban warfare, but whatever is like the closest to the fight, we would have eventually broken that down and worked our way back to the safest possible place. So whatever's closest, break that down, get rid of the intel, bring the equipment back, and consolidate moving backwards in a strategic way. And then at the same time, bringing back our allies and our American citizens that are, as we're moving our way back. I'm assuming Kabul was probably the most secure before they took it over. And so that probably would have been like the exit strategy there, maybe, but that would have made more sense to break down piece by piece while while pulling back and bringing back our citizens and our allies.
So what do you think about our head military saying things like I guess well they can't secure the safety, that they'll basically the airport's there but you're on your own to get there, that they don't have the capability to go in and help people get there. Do you have any thoughts, I guess, on that?
I honestly, I think it's kind of a cowardice thing to say. I think that we made some very bad decisions and we put a lot of American lives at risk, and we should be fixing it. I'm not saying we need to go back to war, but there's absolutely a way to get people out of there. I don't really know how, because I don't know what all exactly is going on, like by the map or anything like that. But I think that's kind of a. I'm trying to find like the kind words to say, but I
Like,
don't
you
think
have
it's, huh?
a button to block out your swear words.
I don't think it is. It's not right. Like it really isn't right to pretty much tell American citizens, American passport holders, our allies that we said we were going to protect, that you're on your own. Figure it out. If you don't get to Kabul by the 31st of August, then you got to figure it out on your own. But if you notice, there's also conflicting strategies going on. So you have Lloyd Austin and Jake Sullivan that are dead set on August 31st, that we're going to be done. We're not going to expand troop activity over there, etc. But then you have the president that's saying, well, if we don't have everybody out by August 31st, then we will expand the troop activity. It's like, are these guys not talking? Like, I don't understand what's happening right now.
Yeah, well, yeah, they did talk about a window, which is like we'll be there to the window close. I'm like, excuse me, excuse
Yeah.
me. There's people there who need help, and you're just gonna say it just makes me think of like a purge movie or something like that. Like
Hmm.
There's a movie with Owen Wilson. He was trapped in like another country, and he had to get him and his family out and stuff. We're like, it's like the worst case scenario you could ever imagine for your family, for yourself. I mean, there's missionaries, contractors,
Hmm.
people who just helped us, who are in harm's way, and so as when we talk about the I guess the refugees that they're gonna take in from Afghanistan, and are you concerned about, I guess, vetting?
Yes. So number one, President Biden had asked the Border Patrol for volunteers to help process these refugees, which I thought that was kind of ridiculous considering our Border Patrol agents are extremely busy. Um,
Hashtag
there's a lot of us that experienced the Taliban infiltrated a lot of host nation entities that we were training while we were over there, and they would come, they'd get the training from us, and then they'd run back to the little Taliban camp and, share what they learned, whatever. So I do worry that there is a possibility that the Taliban are running around the airfield pretending to be displaced citizens, refugees, to get, a trip to America. Now, I do know that I think, I can't remember which senator it was, said that they had a list of 14,000 names of people that have already been vetted. They were our allies, that whether it be the interpreters or other contract workers that we had. So I know that some of the planes consist of those people.
hmm
So because I know some people were kind of like concerned about one of the pictures that they saw, they're like, "Oh, it's mostly men." Well, you got to think about who was out there running around with us. It was mostly men. It's
hmm
so I'm not. I don't know. I'm still concerned about it. I think that there are other avenues to take. We have ally countries that are significantly closer to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of bases that we shut down in Germany. Why not take those refugees to Germany? Ask the German army to, secure them while we get a reserve unit spun up to go over there and secure those installations with the refugees until we figure out a more permanent option for them. Like, is the end? I mean, I'm sure I know the answer to this question, but is the end state for all these refugees to become American citizens? Like, is that what the plan is? I mean, I'm sure it is, but I
I,
don't know.
I would assume that that is the plan, and I definitely want to help people who have helped us, but I don't trust in their ability to properly vet everyone coming over it, and it is peculiar that that they want border security people to help
Hmm.
when our border is insane right now.
Yeah, and I think that, like, step number one after all of this happened, well, first of all, it should never happen this way. We should have already had an exit strategy, but we'll just go past that. So the first step that should have happened was closing down our border, because we've caught many terrorists not coming across the border because it's wide open. So I think step number one should have been to close that border down. Step number two, I like I said, I definitely feel for the people that I was over there working with, and other allies that we had. Yes, we should rescue them. We should get them out of there. We made them a promise. They risked their lives, their family lives, to help the Americans and the allies. So yes, get them out of there, but take them somewhere closer instead of all the way across to America, where they're going to be rushed vetted, and like, let's do this the right way. Like I said, put them in Germany on one of our installations that we had there, and vet them properly, and deem that they're safe to be over here. And I mean, it's not just Germany. Like, there's other allied forces that could help us, and other allied countries that could help take these refugees in while we make sure that they're vetted the right way.
Yeah, well, that especially seems like a good idea, considering that I've heard, and I don't know how much of a solid plan this was, but that they're talking about in the UK maybe just open borders without passports from people from Afghanistan, which I guess they've done crazy things like that in the past.
That seems like an amazing idea.
It seems like an awful idea.
That was sarcasm.
I know it was sarcasm. Someone did leave a comment saying, I just want to say, Jen, that you did your job to the best of your abilities. Thank you for your service. God bless and Godspeed.
Thank you so much. And that's been like something that's really been hard for a lot of us. Like I said, I don't speak for all the veterans out there, But that's something that I've been contemplating, for the past week, is like, what was it all for? I know, like, I went over there, served the country. I was helping to liberate another country from terrorists, and it's frustrating because I'm so torn. It's like, I know I went over there and I did my job, but at the same time, it's like, what was it all for? Like, everything just got undone. Like, all the progress that we made over the past 20 years, all the military members that we and allies that we lost over the past 20 years, all the battle wounds and invisible scars that a lot of us are coming back with, was for what? You
Hmm.
know?
Well, I guess you gotta have to just think about it in a scale of what can happen in the. Let's just look at a lifetime. I guess you might come into hard circumstances, then great things may happen, and maybe you come with a rough end. But does that mean that the good things that happened in between weren't worth living?
Hmm.
So I mean, like I said, you don't realize the ripple of a positive impact that you've had. There's people who've been living in a free society, women who got to go to school, who, in the major cities, they emulate like Starbucks, and it just kind of even looks like it can over here, where they're just living life, drinking coffee, and there's people who've been able to feel what democracy was like, independence was like before, and people won't forget that. And I know what's going on right now is horrific, but that it still means something to people
Hmm.
regardless of the outcome that is right now, and it feels like they've undone a lot of things, and it does feel like they've undone a lot of things, but um you just kind of have to look for like the positive moments and the positive stories from over the years. Like, I remember when we had that shooting in Las Vegas, that was just like horrific. There were some stories of that I had to read of strangers who were helping each other out through that just brought me to tears. But looking at the goodness in humanity was what really kind of carried me through that time.
Hmm.
So, like I said, even just like the impact of Christians being a little bit safer in Pakistan, I thank you for that. And I don't possibly know the positive ripple that you've had, but like I really wish that people didn't feel this way. And again, that the commander in chief didn't make people feel this way. But again, I thank you for your service, and it wasn't for nothing.
Thank you. I like I said, I really try. It is just a bit of a struggle, based on, my experience that I had over there, the issues that I've had since I've been back, and it's really frustrating because I know I'm not the only one. There's hundreds of thousands of us that went over there and is feeling the exact same thing that I'm feeling, and it's really hard to shake that feeling of defeat. And Kat even said it wasn't like, this failure wasn't on us, and we know that, but it's still hard to shake that feeling of defeat when we worked so hard for so many years and sacrificed so much just to watch it unravel in a matter of days.
Hmm. I did have snippets of Joe Biden's interview. I just decided not to play, but uh, one thing that was remarkable was when they were mentioning the people on the planes and stuff, and George Stephanopoulos well, he mentioned it, and Biden's like, that was 4 or 5 days ago.
Oh, I did. I read an article about that today. And I mean, there was more to it that he said, but it was kind of like, when you say something like, "Oh, well, that was just 4 or 5 days ago." Like, you're kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not discrediting, but
Minimizing it.
yeah, minimizing it. And it's like, uh, people were falling from planes. There was a guy that was stuck in the landing gear that they found dead.
Yeah.
And it's just all a horrific scene watching all of it. Now, there's somebody had asked me, because I don't know if you saw, thank you, Gracie. I don't know if you saw, like, well, I'm sure you saw the video of them running alongside the plane, and somebody asked me this, and I don't really know what the answer is, but because they were like, why are they like running alongside, cheering and smiling? And because there was like a group that was like running alongside, cheering and smiling, and I'm kind of like, I noticed that too, and I don't know. I don't know why they were doing that. Like, I'm not them. It's kind of weird. It was kind of a weird feeling because you have people that are climbing on top of it and, trying to hang on for dear life, while at the same time you have people cheering alongside of it, knowing the plane's taking off. Like if the plane was landing, then I could probably see why they'd be cheering and smiling, but the plane was taking off. It was, I don't know, maybe they had family members
Yeah,
on that plane that they were happy that they're getting home.
yeah, maybe some people just had loved ones that made it off.
Mhm.
'Cause I would be able to, like, you don't leave me. Like,
Yeah.
I'd definitely be like, don't leave me. Yeah, the 4 or 5 days, it kind of reminds people of what difference does it make? Hillary Clinton's Benghazi moment of the
Mhm.
hearing kind of got that kind of vibe. Yeah, and I guess the other snippet was that I had was Joe Biden when he mentions that basically he has no regrets and Taliban was going to run over, and perhaps that was always inevitable, but the way that things went down, obviously they could have did things differently, and to have no obviously it was a mistake because you had to send people back in.
Mhm. Yeah. And a lot of people ask me if they think that we're going to go back and invade again, and I don't think we will. Obviously I'm not privy to that type of information. When I'm told to execute, I go execute. But just based on what I've seen, I don't think we're going to go back to invade. I think we're going to continue to probably send, little bits at a time until things settle down, or until like enough is enough. But everything that Joe had said the beginning of the week, talking about, no, we shouldn't be risking our soldier or military's lives for them, blah blah, whatever. I truly believe that he does not want to send military back over there in
Mhm.
a surplus amount, but I don't think it's for. I have to be really careful how I say this. Um, so the Department of Defense's budget has been severely cut. If we go back to war, obviously more money is going to have to go to the Department of Defense. That money that got cut from us to begin with is used for their little pet projects. They don't want to take money away from their pet projects to refund the Department of Defense and replenish our forces, if you get what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying. I'm horrified. I get what you're dang.
Yeah.
My gosh.
So no, I do not think that we will go back and invade Afghanistan and go back to war based on that assumption.
Well,
Assumption.
I thought Liz Cheney said, not that I like Liz Cheney, but she said something that was interesting. She said, "This isn't how you end a war. This is how you start one." So I mean, it did seem interesting on that front. But I think Joe Biden just really genuinely wanted to pull out and didn't care what happened. And I don't know if you heard that quote. Political Playbook had it in a piece they did like 2 days ago about Joe Biden in 2010, saying when he was asked about what sort of repercussions there could be, and he said he didn't care and that they got away with it in Vietnam. Did you hear about that?
I did not.
I'm trying to find. I have a screenshot of it. Yeah. Yeah, Richard Holbrooke wrote in his diary, and he was Obama's special representative for Afghanistan and Pakistan. Um, and they said that the U.S. had to leave Afghanistan regardless of consequence for women or anyone else. According to Holbrooke's diary, when he asked about American obligations to Afghans, like the girl in Kabul school, Biden replied with a history lesson from the final U.S. withdrawal from Southeast Asia in 1973. Bleep that. We don't have to worry about that. We did it in Vietnam. Nixon and Kissinger got away with it.
Um, I feel like using Vietnam as an example was probably not the right thing to do, because we all know what type of a failure that was.
Mm-hmm.
We all saw. Well, I mean, not us because we weren't old enough, but we've all read in the history books and seen, I'm sure, the pictures and all that of Saigon and all the failures that happened with. We did the exact same thing. We pulled out without an exit strategy because we have somebody that's so focused on a date and wants to make a name for himself for his tenure, I guess. And I just think that was the wrong thing to do. I mean, he should have having September 11th as the pullout date was, to me, disgusting.
Mhm.
Like I don't know what you're getting at, but that to me that was disgusting. Like if you wanted to make it a significant date, then you should have made it like October, was it October 7th was when we invaded. Make it 20 years on the dot. Like let's do that. But like let's not be disrespectful to all the family members that, lost people on September 11th. I just, because to me, when you say, "Oh, we're going to end the war in Afghanistan and pull all of our troops out on September 11th," you just took away from, not saying that we obviously celebrate September 11th as like a holiday, but that's a day for remembrance. But now you're going to make it a day of celebration because we ended the war. Like I
Yeah.
felt that was a little disgusting. And I think that if we would have, I wonder if we kept the May 1st date. I wonder how, if, because maybe the Taliban's pissed that we didn't leave May 1st like we were supposed to. Maybe that's what a lot of it is. I don't know. It's hard to say what the right answer is.
They're just evil men who will do what they can when the opportunity arises, I suppose.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, September 11th is really bizarre to me too because obviously for the reasons that you stated, but like Homeland Security issued out a terror threat, possible terror threat from people they think domestically who are against COVID vaccines and stuff, that
Mhm.
mandates and stuff. Um, and they could possibly strike during September 11th or other or religious holidays. So they think it's possible that Americans could do something because they're upset about COVID.
So
Um,
I think that was like they were just kind of wrapping a couple things into one report, because I mean, like, let's think about this logically. Who's out there saying, I'm like, let's gun up, we need to take over the government, or we need to take our government back, and we can't, we got to fight and all this stuff. Like it it's us on the right. Like
yeah,
we got to watch what we
I
say.
I no, I get that, but they would make that assumption, but not assume that that would be a really bad time to pull out because stuff might happen. I mean,
So yeah, I mean, but like I said, I get the security report just because of it's rolling all those things into one. I don't think it should have been September 11th. I don't think that should have been our pullout date. But that to me is just a slap to so many people's faces, to include the Taliban. Like the Taliban, September 11th is a holiday for them. They yay, America got attacked on that day, and we're going to keep celebrating it because that we severely impacted America with this. So I feel like using that is just kind of a slap to the face to a lot of people. And I don't know, I'm really worried because I feel like now that they've taken Afghanistan back and they're getting backed by China and Russia, I really worry what's going to actually happen on the 20-year anniversary of 9/11.
ugh, oh boy. And I'm worried about Russia and China being emboldened by America's weakness. Um, it's concerning,
Yeah.
and about what was going to happen next, about what's going on right now on the ground. Can you imagine this all happening without like social media and just having to rely on like CNN and these places to tell us
Yeah.
what's happening?
Oh, it would be terrible. I mean, honestly, like, and when I'm trying to think about when in history have we ever been blatantly threatened. Can you remember, aside from like like the Middle East saying death to America, we hate America, but I'm saying as far as like these big countries like Russia or China, when can you ever remember a time where we were blatantly like threatened, like, oh, if we invade this place we're going to crush the US? Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you know what I'm referencing right now?
Mm-mm.
So China blatantly said,
Are you talking about? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
if they invade Taiwan, they are going to crush the US, any US troops that are there. When in history have we ever had somebody blatantly come out and say that they're going to crush our soldiers, our military members? Like I honestly can't remember. I'm sure there was.
Nothing in my recent, well, definitely nothing recent, but yeah, and I can't think of anything.
Yeah, and that right there bothered me when I saw that news article, because I was like, I can't think of a time, at least not in my lifetime, where this was said. And just the what's the word I'm looking for? Just the bravery of saying that openly, any other time, I feel like that would have been like, oh, you're going to threaten us? Okay, well, guess what? You know? And I just, we are looked at so weak right now. And it's a very defeating feeling.
It kills me how people said Trump was making America look bad. Why? Because he like fed the koi fish wrong or walked in front of the queen for half a second. And like things like that. He's embarrassing us. But they'll cheer people who literally kneel during the Olympics or turn their back. They'll cheer those people. Yes, queen, yes. Like they
Hmm.
believe doing that stuff. And now we've got Biden. I have looked at. Have you looked at any like people's reactions from people who were like Republican and supported the other side? Because I was going through Meghan McCain's tweets and stuff the other night. Just kind of
I
being,
have not. I have not. I've actually tried to like take a little bit of a break this week. I mean, obviously, I'm trying to keep up a little bit with the news to see what's going on over there. But as far as like really getting too in depth with it, I've been kind of a little radio silent on
I'm
it.
gonna
You
make a
know.
compilation. I'm gonna be petty.
Oh, I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see it.
Because your mom came out not just support endorsed and there's all these people who always I know you can't say too much about the president so just you can be silent for a second if you need to be but all these people who just were like oh he's so empathic and he's a guy who cares about us and it's like no I literally wrote an article on my website it was like no Joe Biden is not a nice guy and just from you don't do what you do to Clarence Thomas if you're a nice guy or invent borking if you're a nice guy, or just blatantly lie about things like participating in the civil rights movement and the things they didn't like about Trump. He's mean to the press. Obama and Biden actually went after the press on different occasions. That was like real scandals that happened in their administration, not just wearing a tan suit. You know, he's can be very aggressive and mean to reporters when he doesn't like what they're asking. And just rude to people, you know, in general, hey fatso or hey fat, you know, just to people asking questions. And he wasn't available, accessible during the campaign. And now that's obviously a big problem right now that he's like, here's my 2 cents, I'm out.
Yeah, right back to Camp David.
And he's going back to Delaware, right? Is he in Delaware right now?
Is last I heard he was at Camp David. Where's it? Where's Camp David? Is that Pennsylvania?
I'm not sure.
I don't. I don't know. That's the last I heard. He was at Camp David.
I heard he was getting not a lot of sleep and he was wanting to go back home to Delaware.
Okay.
That was the news from the other night because there were rumors and then it was like on the schedule that he was like gonna go home and sleep in his bed, I guess.
I have no words.
Well, I guess we better call Mike Lindell and get him my pillow.
Hey, maybe it'll help. You know, get some sleep. You know. Yep. I really have no words. I really fear for what's coming next. I don't know what the options are. Thank you, Mary. Yeah, I don't know. I will tell you that people are so there's two different things that's happening right now. And go figure. You have your extreme leftists that are back to, screw the military and I'm being called a traitor like pretty much every single day, whatever. But in real life,
Why?
there are a lot of people that are back to because somebody said that I was bashing my commander in chief, and that's never ever happened. I'm very well aware of what my limitations are, and I have not crossed those limitations. I might have come close, but I've never crossed those limitations because it's not worth, throwing away 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I told this individual because they came into my podcast on Tuesday and was, talking the mess that they were talking. And I said, if this was last year and I was out there saying Orange Man bad, Trump's a terrible president and all this stuff, you wouldn't be saying a single word. If I was talking bad about Trump as my commander in chief, nobody, they wouldn't say anything. Those on the left, obviously. But anyways, where was I going with that? Oh, so like, but in real life, what I've noticed, because where I work at, it's not very military heavy because I'm not on an actual military installation. But I do like go to and from work in uniform, and go if I go out to lunch or whatever. Obviously, I'm in my uniform. And what I noticed this week is a lot of people are approaching us saying thank you for your service. Me and a bunch of coworkers, we went to Chili's for lunch one day, and we had so many people coming up to us when we were walking out going to our car. Somebody, like, they were stopped at the red light and they rolled their windows down and they're thanking us for our service. So there's two things that's happening right now. We have our extreme leftists that are back to bashing the military harder than they were during Memorial Day. But then we have a lot of, I guess, reignited patriotism, it seems. I mean, maybe this is just where I'm at, but it's kind of surprising considering I'm in New York. So I think that that's at least good, that it's reigniting some people's patriotism. It just sucks that it really sucks that it takes some sort of a travesty or traumatic experience or events to happen to reignite people's patriotism. Like, it should be an all the time thing. Like, you should always be proud of the country that you live in, and appreciative of your military, and that should be a 24/7 thing. And it's just, I mean, I'm just glad that it's, I guess, happening again.
Well, you know what? I there is like an appreciation really for being, I mean, I'm always appreciative of my country and stuff, but
Hmm.
seeing the images of the plane and people just desperately trying to leave and knowing what's about to happen and what is happening over there just makes me really grateful to be here in America and
Hmm.
to hold on to our freedoms and our liberty. That's, why we need to keep speaking up and fighting for them, for our freedoms and for our liberty. It was really messed up. Arnold Schwarzenegger saying "F your freedom" or whatever. Um,
Yeah. He actually ended up losing. So there's a really big supplement company called Redcom One. They're veteran owned. Like, there's a bunch of veterans that started it up, and they're a really really big supplement company. And they help sponsor like the Arnold Classics every year. And they have pulled all support, all the Arnold Classic stuff that they had in their store. They've pulled all the support because of what he said. It's like, you kind of messed up, buddy, because a lot of veterans used to support you. A lot of us looked up to you, and that's kind of really messed up for you to say something like that.
yeah, I'm gonna have to go and find his speech that he gave at RNC convention. I don't know, maybe it was 2012 or something. Or maybe it was before that. But he was talking about when he came from Austria and when he heard, people talking about stuff that sounded like a Democrat. He was like, well, that sounds like what I came from. There's got to be
Hmm.
something like a contrast of where he is today. Which even when he first started talking about the pandemic stuff, that was crazy to me because he's like, just stay home, do all this. It was like you live like in a giant property, like on a farm. It's not the same as
Yeah.
everyday American citizens who are like in their smaller houses or whatever and can't go anywhere. Like you have like a zoo.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the same with like all those celebrities. They're like, "Oh, just stay home," as they're like surrounded with their basketball courts and bowling alleys and swimming pools, and they have all the luxuries at their big ass mansion. I'm sorry, big mansions,
Oh, I
and and we have these little tiny houses, and we're being restricted on where to go, and it's like, I don't know. It's really sad seeing a lot of people go against what their core beliefs are. Like,
for politics.
Arnold, for example. You're a Republican, and I feel like it was a cop out that you're doing it to prevent yourself from getting canceled. That's what a lot of people are doing now. Is they're speaking out on things that they don't truly believe. They just don't want to get canceled,
Did you
and I just think that's a cowardly thing to do.
Yeah, did you see that people are mad at Carrie Underwood because she liked a speech that Matt Walsh gave at the in Nashville when they had a school board meeting about how they didn't want the kids to wear masks. So Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire went
Hmm.
to speak out against it, and so Carrie Underwood, all she did was like it on Twitter, and people were so mad it was trending, and they were
Wow.
trying to cancel her.
It's a shame. Like, I don't understand this whole canceling thing. Like, if you don't like somebody, just don't support them. You don't have to try to destroy their careers. Like, it's too easy to not listen to Carrie Underwood song. It's too easy to not go buy a pair of Nikes or something. I don't get it. I really don't. And oh my gosh, the world is honestly a mess. It's just one thing after another, and So I don't know if we've ever talked about this before, the last time I was on with you, but I've never been the most religious person. In fact, like I had walked away from God a long time ago, and there's a lot of things the past 6 months or so, that's been kind of pushing me back and trying to follow that path. And I finally am like just reopening myself up and trying to get back on that right, I guess righteous path or whatever. And I think that with everything happening, it's hopefully pushing lot more people towards God, because the things that I've been reading, Derry, she told me to download this Bible app, and it gives you like the daily prayers and the daily verses,
Mhm.
and all these things. And it's been really helpful considering the nonsense that's been going on and the way that I've been feeling. And it's like I never really I a year ago I would have never imagined myself like walking this path and trying to go back to, back to my religion. Like, I don't know, it's a crazy world we live in right now.
That makes me so happy.
I mean, I have like so what started it, it's not really what started it, but I guess what finally kind of pushed me. So I was telling Derry, I was like, look, like I keep getting these signs. Like things keep happening, or I'll hear somebody say something at the right moment, and it's like that's God talking to me. And it's really weird. I'm like, I don't know what to do about it, because like I've kind of walked away. Like I'm trying to maybe, find my way back. And she said, you need to, she's like, this happened to me before. What you need to do is get, because I have a Bible. She's like, get your Bible and just randomly open it. God's going to push you in the direction that he's trying to push you, and he's going to show you the way. So I was kind of scared to do it. So for the longest time I didn't. Well, I finally did. And can I read the verse to you?
Absolutely.
All right, so let me pull this up because I took a picture of it. So what I did was I randomly opened the Bible, and where my left thumb was, I had already had it in my head where my left thumb is, that's where I'm going to read. And my left thumb just happened to be perfectly lined up with one of the chapters. And it says, if you will only obey the Lord your God by diligently observing all his commandments that I am commanding you today, the Lord your God will set you high above all the nations of the earth. All these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you if you obey the Lord your God. Now, I can't remember what book it was because the way I took the picture, so I'm sure I can like Google it and find out what book and verse. But I was like, well, that's kind of crazy that like that's where I was pushed.
Hmm.
So I started looking more into some things. I got pushed in another direction. There was on Sirius XM, they have a special channel for this month. It's Lucille Ball. It's her show, Let's Talk to Lucy. And I was listening to it on my way back home from Ohio, and I can't remember who she was talking to, but she talked about Psalm 91. She's not going to say what it meant to her by reading Psalm 91, but that's something that people should read and take from it what you take from it. So I was like, well, maybe I need to go read Psalm 91. I can't remember what it says off the top of my head, but it was just more of a validation of like I'm on the right path to finding my way back to God.
Hmm.
So I went and I bought a little mini Bible to take to work with me. I've been doing like the daily prayers and the daily reading, and I'm just on this path, and I'm hoping I'm doing the right thing.
You know what? My dad, he always, everyone like has a phone in church, of course. And so a lot of people will, there's a lot of people who have Bibles, but a lot of people will get their phone, or they don't always make it a priority to bring a physical Bible when they could just bring their phone or whatever.
Hmm.
And I'm guilty of that a lot. But my dad always says like, he's like the God can literally just light stuff up to you. You can open a page, it'll fall in exactly where you need it to be.
Hmm.
When he was young, he wanted to like drop out of school. He's really like interested in just going to straight ministry. Like he couldn't wait. And so he just felt like he should open up his Bible, and he opened his Bible, and his eyes exactly landed on and I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, for those who are in ministry, like wait on your ministry or something like that. So it was time.
Oh wow.
So he has lots of examples like that. So he's always stressing like make sure you have a physical Bible
Hmm.
with you.
And that's part of the reason why, like, I bought that mini Bible, because the one that I have before, or the one that I had before I bought this one, is just a regular size Bible. It's like I really don't want to have to like carry that around. Like, I want something small that if I need to shove it in my pocket, I can, or if it's the little small pocket in my bag. So I started carrying that around. But then, like I said, Derry told me about that app, and that's what I do. Like, I try every morning when I wake up, is to see what the daily verse is, and then before I go to sleep at night, I'm going over the daily prayers, or when I'm sitting in my office, and I get that little feeling. It's like, what, let me look at this app. And granted, I've only had this app for like a week, but I mean, I don't know. I just hope that I hope I'm on the right path that God's been showing me for like the past 6 months, because I'm telling you, I've been seeing signs everywhere. And I don't know if you know who Cave Runner is on TikTok,
Mm-mm.
but she ended up popping up on my, I think she popped up on my For You page, and it was just another one of those signs that I was like, well, this is kind of odd timing. So I followed her, and like, I've talked to her a few times. I've left a couple comments, like, I was telling her kind of about my journey that I've been on. It's like, that God's been speaking to me in so many different ways, and like, she was one of them that God was speaking to me through. And I was like, it's just really interesting, opening your eyes and seeing all this stuff. And the timing honestly couldn't have been more perfect, considering everything that's going on, not only in the world, but like issues that I've been having myself. It's a crazy journey.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I like around June, when you said you were like going through a really tough time. One night, you were on like live forever. Like I came home before church, you were on live. I came home after church, and you were still on live, and you were like going just through a rough time. I mean, I was just praying, and I was just really, really, really praying for you. So that makes me happy.
Yeah. And oh, you're talking about that one night that I was on for like 12 hours, and I got really drunk. and
Yeah.
and yeah, and I really opened up uh a door there, and couldn't really control it, because I was talking to Katro, and we were talking about all this stuff, because I was definitely having a lot of issues back in June. And I don't know why. Like I said, when June comes around, I obviously can prepare myself, because I know June's coming, and I know what I typically go through, and I can limit myself and prepare myself as best I can to deal with the issues that I'm having. But for some reason, I was talking to my dad about it this time around. I'm like, I don't know why. Like, it's tougher this time around. I don't know why. Like, I really had a really hard time this year, like probably worse that I've had since like the first year, and
Mhm.
it was just a really, really tough time. And I don't know if it's just from everything that's been happening. I was just overwhelmed, but I don't know. I think it was one of those doors that I need to open and show, I guess, my vulnerable side to the public. It's something I don't typically do, but I guess that it's what I needed that day. And talking to Katro, and seeing, a lot of, like, I saw you pop in, and Derry pop in, and a couple other people pop in and say the kind words that they were saying. I think it was one of those things that I needed to do,
Mhm.
to help me get over, because I was really struggling with trying to get out of that funk. And doing that, like, I think it was something I needed to, like, snap me out of it, I guess.
I did a video yesterday responding to someone had commented in a apologetics guy's page, and they said they think that a lot of people are just Christian because it feels good, and they don't actually have a reason, like logical reasons why they follow it. And so he's an apologetics page, so he's like,
Mhm,
obviously that's not true, so he debunked it that way. And
mhm,
so I focus on the fact, like, no, being a Christian talks about crucifying your flesh. Like Jesus says, you have to deny yourself and take up your cross daily. There's a lot of things that are hard as a Christian, and
mhm,
God will give you a peace that passeth all understanding. It's very hard for a lot of people to get to that point, because
mhm,
they have to surrender the fact that, I mean, especially if they're like, my mind's always going, and sometimes it's really hard to just surrender control and surrender your trust in the Lord.
mhm,
And but if you do that, yeah, he will give you a peace. And he, in that scripture you read about, he'll set you up, he can do all those things for you, but you have to learn to build that trust, and there is a vulnerability there that you have to
mhm,
have. And so it's easy, and it feels good in the natural to indulge in your flesh. It feels good to go around thinking that you're the savior, that you can do something. Like these people who wear a mask and then condemn you for not wearing that, they like the high
Yeah.
of that control. The
Hmm.
people who hashtag BLM, I did something to stop racism. No, you didn't. But
Yeah.
it makes you feel good. Those things, those surface level things make you feel good. They don't
Yeah.
accomplish anything, but actually surrendering yourself to a higher authority like that,
Hmm.
trusting that, it can be scary. It's worth it. And yes, it will ultimately feel good, but it's a process for sure. So
Yeah. It's funny that you talk about that because that was like today's like story on the app,
it's
and
what we
like the
call
verse.
being in the spirit.
Yeah, I mean the verse of today is from Psalm 68:19. It says, "Blessed be the Lord who daily loadeth us with benefits, even the God of our salvation." And like I said, like the whole story today was about, pretty much relinquishing that control and trusting and putting our faith in God. And that's crazy. That's so crazy that you talk about that today. Like, oh my gosh, it's those signs that keep pushing me, and I'm finally giving into it. And I think hopefully it'll help me work through the issues that I'm working through, and hopefully it'll help replenish the hope that I'm losing on the world, because it's really hard watching all these events unfold, and especially when you are part of a resolution to one of those events and just watching it unfold and crash and burn. It's like I was already losing hope before the stuff in Afghanistan
Mhm.
happened, and watching all that, it's like, well, dang it. Now what? Like, and I still don't know what now what. The only thing I can do is to get get my mind right so I can get back to helping to spread the message of, not giving up. As I know I just kind of contradicted myself, but I'm trying to get my mind right so I can go back to that message, because a
Mhm.
lot of people are wanting to give up. I'm myself included. So I want to get my mind right and help get that message back out there to help hopefully reignite people's hope.
Yeah, well, after the election, people were like obviously going crazy about a lot of different stuff because we didn't. I didn't get the outcome that I wanted. A lot of people didn't, and so people were like, "Are the results going to change?" And all this other kind of stuff. And I kept saying like I had an odd piece about it, and I don't know if that's the Lord telling me that something was going to change, or that regardless of the fact that He's still in control anyway. And so just like kind of surrender that too. I mean, I still talked about things, and but I didn't have like that emotional anxiety that everyone else around me appeared to have.
Mhm.
And so I was having a conversation with my second youngest sister. She's got 3 kids, and so I told her like some things that were going to happen, like or could happen with Biden in office, and I gave her reason to be concerned.
Yeah.
But I said I'm not too. And so she had called me back, I think, after we had that conversation, and she's like, "Well, what's going to happen?" And I said, "Well, I'm not too concerned because I know we can talk about politics all day long and try to inspire people and all this like other kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm still like a minister, and I'm just like, I know that at least that is something I feel that I can control and work
Mhm.
toward that will actually really help and benefit and change the world. So if I focus on those things, those are things that will matter. All things will pass away. All
Mhm.
things will pass away. So at least what I can do as a Christian, I feel will ultimately be the thing that has a lasting impact. So politics are important. Pop culture is important. Like all these things that we talk about, they're important, but
Mhm.
they're not as important as the other stuff.
Right.
So I just have to be more committed um, to the gospel, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of us. If we just find a little peace in ourselves, then um who was canceled last night when I was talking to her. She was pretty much saying the same thing. Like, if we focus on the smaller pictures instead of the big picture, it'll start to spread out. So if we start focusing on ourselves, being happy, and then spreading that positivity and that joy and that hope towards other people, while also trying to work on issues at the local level. She's like, if this community does it, then this community does it, and eventually it's going to all spread out. So like, I kind of feel like it's the same concept. If everybody just kind of works on themselves and try to reignite that positivity, and find the faith, regardless of which direction you go, I guess, like, just find a way to be okay within yourself and spread that to other people, then I think that we would be better off. Like, I really do wish that we could go back to, love thy neighbor, like regardless of what your religion was. It, like I said, September 12th, 2001, that's, we were back to love thy neighbor. We didn't care what the color of your skin was, what your religion was, what your political affiliation was. Like, it was back to just love thy neighbor. And that's, I would really wish we could go back to that.
Yeah. Well, since you are in New York, how close are you to New York City?
And I'm not far at all. I'm in Long Island, like
Okay.
right
So,
outside.
so what's going on with the mandates? How is that like with the restaurants? Because it's kind of soft right now. The hard deadline's not in, right, for people showing like their passports for vaccine.
um I don't know if they've started it. I know my buddy is going to the city tonight to kind of test it because it's the city, it's not the state. And I know that De Blasio had just said a few days ago that he's going to fine each restaurant $2,000. I don't remember if it was like per unvaccinated person or like per day that they serve unvaccinated people and don't abide by these guidelines. And I'm kind of like, I don't understand what the point of that is. Like, why are we forcing people to do these things? Thank God it's staying in New York City right now, because I walk around, Long Island, and go to the grocery store, go to whatever store. I don't have, there's none of those mandates. Like, it's pretty free, I guess, so to speak. I hate that I even have to say that, but it's pretty free where I'm at. But I just, hopefully it stays in New York City, if it's, and it doesn't spread. Who's to say what's going to happen when Kathy, or Kate, is it Kathy or Katie Hochul, the lieutenant governor? I don't think she's taken. Has it been 2 weeks? It hasn't been 2 weeks yet.
Man, he probably wishes he had waited it out. Oh, the news being distracted with Afghanistan. He probably wishes, man, I should just wait it out.
Yeah, if I would have just waited a couple more days, but I don't know. I don't know what's gonna end up happening with him. It's, I think he's got what, one more week left, or maybe his time just ended. I don't remember what the end date was for him and the start date for her, but I feel like I heard that she's worse than he is. So who's to say she doesn't do another statewide mandate? And I mean, we've already had talk at work about lockdowns, and I'm just like, well, dang it, I don't want to be locked down. Like, I want to, as
You
much as I don't like driving 45 minutes every day to go to work and sitting in an office bored, like, I still like being out of the house and doing things.
you know what's crazy to me about like them finding the restaurants at $2,000 a day is that, I mean, I'm sure they still have like police would go out and enforce their rules and stuff about the vaccine, but he's doing the same thing like Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan did. Like, they, at a certain point in time, there were local police are like, we're not going to do your dumb mandates. We got other things to worry about. And so
Yeah.
they turn it on the businesses saying, we're going to pull your license. We're going to fine you if you're not controlling this.
Hmm.
So, restaurants, there are a lot of restaurants who feel like they cannot not do it if they're going to get fined $2,000 a day, especially after how much they've lost.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, there's so many places here that shut down because of all the mandates, and if they completely ostracize a whole group like they're trying to do, like, they're still gonna lose business. And I mean, there was, when I went to the city, I went down to the city right before I went to Ohio, and we were walking down around Times Square, and it wasn't nearly as busy. Like, it was busy, but it wasn't nearly as busy as like what you would imagine Times Square would
Mm-hmm.
typically be. And we ended up going to the Brooklyn Diner. That day that we went there was the first day that that diner opened back up since the pandemic. And it's right there in Times Square. I couldn't believe it. And I'm just like, it's a blessing that they opened back up. Like, thank God that they didn't completely lose their business. But I was just like, wow, I can't believe that it took you guys this long to open back up.
Yeah,
And I really feel that this mandate is is going to hurt businesses even more.
for sure. And I wonder how it's going to be with racial tensions because,
That's the other thing too, because if you, I don't know if you know this or not, but 2/3 of Black Americans in New York are not vaccinated, and I heard it's the same in like California and somewhere else. So you have 2/3 that are not vaccinated, so you're going to deny them service, and it's like, I just wonder what's going to happen with that.
yeah, I don't. I don't know how long it'll last. After people start getting mad about that, because
Hmm.
that is a big racial difference that black people will not be able to go to restaurants, and
Yeah.
so
I,
I know he doesn't care about the Jews, but I don't know how he feels about the blacks.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, Jesus, it's like I said, everything is a mess, and it's really hard to see like the light at the end of the tunnel because it's like, where do we go from here? We got segregation coming back, and it not necessarily in the same lines as it was back in the 60s and all that, but we have segregation coming back. We have the Middle East heating up again. We have China and Russia that's making their moves, and we have a crisis at the border. We have inflation. Like, we're in trouble. And it's like, what's going to be our saving grace? What's going to happen, you know?
Yeah, I asked my dad the other day. I said, "Do you remember like a first 7 months being so bad of a presidency?" And he said no. And my mom was talking a lot about. She doesn't talk a lot about politics herself. Not that she's not
Mhm.
interested, but she's just very quiet. But she was
Yeah.
going on and on about it, about that. And I guess she watched Trump's whole interview on Hannity because she's like, Trump said this, and Trump did this, and Trump said if he was here, he would have did this. So
So is all your family conservative?
immediate family, and there's like cousins and so on, but my dad used to be a Democrat back in the day, but then my oldest sister, she had a class, and they in Pontiac, which is like like an urban city, and so but she had a teacher. They like had a test. He did a test to like kind of see, this is what you believe, this is what they believe.
Hmm.
And so after she took it, she's like, huh, I'm a conservative. And she went home and she's like, Dad, I'm a conservative. He's like, what? She's like, you're a conservative too. You're a conservative Republican. And so he just kind of analyzed it, and he didn't
Hmm.
like Clinton and stuff like that anyway. So he's like, oh, and then, but I don't even like half remember like them believing anything different, because I remember Dad listening to Rush, and he's like watching Drudge Report and all this. He's always been so into it. Like when I got a job with the Michigan Republican Party, he called me on my way to work. He would call me because I had to like drive to Lansing. And so that's like it's like an hour and 20-minute drive every day basically until I like moved out there. And so he would call me on the way to work. He called me during lunch. He called me when I would leave. And he'd always want to know what was going on. I'm like, I
Yeah.
can't literally tell you everything, Dad.
Hmm. Oh my gosh, that's really interesting. And it's funny because like I was kind of talking to my mom. She's not real big on the politics. I thought she was a Democrat at one point, but I don't know. We've never really talked too deep into politics, but I know she's not real big on it.
Mhm.
Me and my dad talk about it like all the time. He's a big supporter of the podcast. Well, the other night, me and my mom was kind of talking about things, and she had mentioned Trump, and I was like, wait a minute, you're a Trump supporter? She's like, oh yeah. I was like, because my dad's not, and my dad's a Republican. Like he can't stand him, and I'm like, Dad, you got to put away personal feelings. Like let's look at his policies and not the man, because like he doesn't like Trump as a man. He thinks he's stuck up and full of himself and says bad things. And I'm just like, Dad, you got to you're sounding like a Democrat. You got to look past that stuff. But
Yeah.
I was like, when my mom said that, I was like, I didn't know that. I thought you hated him too. And she's like, no, I think he did great things. And I was like, oh, what? And she's like, we've just never talked about it. I'm like, I just didn't think you were really into the politics. She's like, well, I'm not, but I did really support Trump. And because she said we needed him back. And I was just like, what?
I remember asking my mom during the Bush election, I was like, who'd you vote for, Mom? And she's like, the drug. Because that story had broke like recently about Bush, drunk. And so and I didn't find out till like recently that she didn't I think I knew she left it blank for like McCain. Like she didn't vote for the president in '08. But
Uh-huh.
she didn't vote for Romney either. And I'm like, but she went and she voted for Trump, and they
Mhm.
like Trump and stuff. But I'm like, I didn't know that you didn't vote for Romney either. but
Yeah. I mean, but honestly, like I don't blame her because so during the Obama administration was when because I registered as a Republican when I turned 18 because I was like, oh, I'm a Republican because my dad's a Republican. I didn't really know anything about politics.
Mhm.
But then, being gay, I was like, well, I have to be a Democrat because, identity politics. So I was a Democrat for a few years, and it was actually during the Obama administration that pushed me over. And for his second term, because I didn't by his second term, by that election, I was like, we got to get rid of this guy. Like I can't stand
Mhm.
this guy. Like we need to get rid of him. But then you look at Mitt Romney and you're like, that guy thinks that women needs to be back in the kitchen. We can't have him. So I was just like, which one's going to be worse? I didn't vote that year, but I was like, which one's going to be the lesser of two evils? And I'm like, well, we already know what to expect with Obama for the most part. So I guess let's just hope. I hope this guy wins. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how Mitt Romney would have been. I don't think it would have been good.
I think it would have been okay. I think it would have been okay. Probably typical.
I mean, but like looking back, like looking at how he is now and how supportive of he is of like democratic
He's a
policies
jerk.
and all that stuff, like do you think I now thinking about it, it's like I don't know. I just feel like it would have just been another Democrat in office had he won.
I think I don't know. I guess a moderate, I suppose, but I guess it would have been better than extreme. But you would have had people disillusioned because he should have been acting more like a Republican, but he
Hmm.
wasn't doing things that were really conservative. Which there's sound bites of him saying that he's not a conservative, which is funny. So it's like, oh, you just putting on a show, huh? For them vote?
Really
Yeah, it
interesting.
was Daily Wire. Which one? Michael Knowles. He found a clip of it. I saved it. I must have bookmarked it somewhere. I'll have to play it or something on
Hmm.
TikTok. But yeah, he there's a clip of him saying like, we're not going back to the conservative Reagan era, like that's over or something like that. It's like,
Interesting.
but
I,
my mom didn't really like him too much because well, she was just kind of suspicious of I guess the Mormonism because she just heard that they believe that black people were cursed. I think was like, so she just had like, and there were people surprised that people felt that way. It was like, no, there's, which I did hear one person say that to me when I was out in Holly High. They brought up random, like, did you know that we believe black people are cursed? And I'm like, what?
oh my
It was
god.
randomly. We were not talking about religion or race or anything. We were just in
Yeah.
class, like, did you know? And then like I didn't need to say anything because the rest of the class was like, you moron and whatever. I
Oh my god.
was just like, that was not a fun fact. If you thought it was a fun fact,
Yeah, like what?
it wasn't fun.
People are so weird sometimes. My goodness. But I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what we need to expect in the future. I just know that people need to start focusing on local elections because we got that coming up soon, and then the midterms. And like I know a lot of people are discouraged because they're like, oh, well, they're just going to cheat again. It's like we still have to vote. We got to make it. We got to at least make it obvious. I mean, like let's look at California for example. They just found out, I can't remember which congressman, I think it was Tom Cotton, was doing some digging and found out there's 1.5 conservatives that were not registered to vote. If y'all would have voted, that's 1.5 million votes
Yeah.
for the red. Now I don't know where in California they are. I highly doubt Los Angeles. Like I don't think it would have like flipped that state, but like that's still 1.5 million votes for Trump. And it would have made it more obvious that like I keep telling people, like we got to at least make it obvious that they're cheating
Or
because if
you have
there's
to do something about the seats in the Congress, and other local seats, too.
Mhm.
Make all the difference in the world. And yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of Republicans. There's more Republicans in, I think, New York than there are people in our state. I think I heard once. So I mean,
I mean, if you, I was actually just telling this to my dad. I was like, if you look at the America by county and whether they vote like red or blue, you'll see that the majority of America is red by county. It's
mhm,
what's making these states blue are those big cities like New York City, Los Angeles, San
Detroit.
Francisco, Detroit. Like, so And so I feel like what's happening, because we have what, 372 million Americans. I can't remember off the top of my head how many actually voted, but it wasn't 372 million. But if we have 372 million Americans and people actually voted, because I think what's happening is these people that are in the blue states are discouraged, like, well, my vote doesn't count anyways because I'm in a blue state. Like, no, your vote still counts overall for your local elections and, popular vote and all that. Like, it still matters. And I that's one thing I'm going to start pushing the closer we get to election season, is getting people to vote for their local elections, because it all starts at the local level. I mean, look at what's happening within our schools. That I jumped in. You were, I think, still talking about CRT at
Yeah.
the beginning. So we those are elected officials, these school board members, like,
Or the mask mandates that they're pushing.
yeah, the mask mandates, like all of this stuff. Like, you guys have the power to make the change. You just have to go out and vote for your local elections, because the local elections are definitely not as good of a turnout as like our federal elections. Like, we got to stop that. We got to fix it.
Our last midterm was really high turnout, but we had pot on the ballot, so we got decimated. That's how Whitmer and our candidate for governor had kind of high unfavorable, so that wasn't like too crazy to believe. But she got like, it was like 5,000 votes or something less than that Hillary Clinton did, so it was like a high turnout for a midterm. And but normally we've had Republican Secretary of States for a long time, and so that is a Democrat now, which they spent a lot of money on that race because they were doing redistricting from like a panel instead of our legislators doing it, because that got voted in the initiative, a ballot proposal, the same time as the pot one. And so the Secretary of State is basically who oversees kind of how stuff is like redistrict. So they really wanted a Democrat over that. And then our Attorney General is a mad woman. She is a man-hating lesbian. There's no other way to put it. She legitimately campaigned on, I am not a man, so I will not molest you. Like, that was a campaign.
What?
I'm paraphrasing, but that was a commercial. That was a commercial of hers. I'm not joking.
Oh my God.
Not joking.
That's really disgusting.
Yeah. She got pulled in the wave. The pot wave.
Yeah, that's insane. I'm really curious to see what's going to happen, because Whitmer's up next year, right? Or is it this year?
2022.
Yeah, so next year. So I'm really curious to see what you guys end up replacing her with, if at all. Hopefully you do. I don't know. I read that she had already raised like a god awful amount of money for a governor election, or campaign. Like, that's unheard of. Yeah,
well, the candidate that concerns her and all the Democrats is Chief Craig, who was he was a police chief of Detroit. People didn't know he was Republican. I knew he's a Republican for a while, but so he's someone who could carry a good amount. He can't win Detroit, but if you just need to do like a little bit, decently, and you can carry the state easily for sure. So they're concerned about him for sure. He'd have to get through the primary. There's some other good candidates involved, and I guess I'm gonna try to get some on my show to talk about the upcoming election. But he's the one who just, it makes the most sense as far as like who can win. Other than that, there's some people who are, I don't know, some of the state is just bonkers about giving her so many passes on the stuff that she did. I think the reason why they pushed Andrew Cuomo to resign is because they didn't want to talk more about the nursing home scandal. And I feel they really don't want to talk more about that, because that touched other people too, including
her. Like that would have hit Whitmer, Wolf from Pennsylvania, Newsom, and what's his name, Murphy down in Jersey. Because there's a bunch of states that was doing the exact same thing that Cuomo did. I just read not that long ago that somebody, I think it's the attorney general, I don't remember what his position was, but he was talking about they need to reopen the investigation on the nursing home scandal on Cuomo after all this stuff came out. So I don't know if they're going to, but I think that they should. Because I know back in July, they're like, oh, we don't see anything, we're not going to investigate. Like, I kind of think you guys need to investigate. Like 2,500, I think it was 2,500 that they found.
Well, they know that he fudged the numbers, and right-wing media has been saying that for like over a year. But then everybody else started to kind of pick it up after the election, because you could talk about it, because he had to be the person who they uplifted above Trump, as their like alternative leadership figure. And he's sexually assaulting women. And, and that's not like a secret. I'm sure other people know when that kind of stuff happens. They just keep a hush hush. But they used it when it was politically expedient because they needed him to go out on that rather than the nursing home thing. Because, like I said, I don't think they wanted to draw attention to other people who mishandled the pandemic. Like Whitmer, because people were starting to draw parallels, and we were hoping here, since they were talking about it with him, that they would start talking about it with us. So I think it could be really easy to beat Whitmer if we could get really on the ball as far as our messaging around it. But a lot of that is going to fall to party leadership and the activists who carry the torch of the message, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. We'll see. I just, that's all we can keep saying is we'll see what happens, and all we can do is really pray and hope for the best.
So are you just in New York for work, or like do you plan to come back to Ohio?
So my plan right now is when I'm done with my commitment here to try to get back to Tennessee to retire. And then once I retire, I right now have plans to go back to Ohio and actually run for because me and my parents were talking about it, I'm going to run for mayor of my hometown and try to get a start there, because by the time I retire, the governor election's already going to happen. I can't campaign while I'm still in, so I'll have to just kind of wait my time. So I figure in the meantime, why not try to get my feet wet and take mayor of my hometown that desperately needs it. Just driving through, like when I was just home, I was like, oh no, like, and this is terrible. What's happening? And so that's the plan. We'll see what happens. I mean, I never know I don't even know what I'm doing tomorrow. Besides, I got to go to work. Like I just take it day by day, and whatever the direction is that I need to go, that's the direction I'm going to go. But right now, that is the plan, is to eventually get back to Ohio and try to take some sort of political position. Tom Cotton also has this program for Veterans for Congress, but I don't know if Congress is really the place for me. Like, one, I don't think I'm that smart to be there. I mean, I know people want to bring like comparisons to like AOC, but
people who are there who aren't smart,
right? But but at the same time, it's like how much of a difference am I really going to make as like Congress, where I have to depend on other people, versus what I can make as like an actual like mayor or governor of something, and maybe one day president. I don't know if I really want to take on that burden, but
that's admirable to want to go home and make that impact where that you can. I think Congress a lot of times would do more help if they just didn't do anything, honest to God.
Yeah.
Honest to God. I mean, besides like having to pass a yearly budget and get that worked out, but every time I hear that Congress is working on a plan, I'm like,
it's terrible.
I'm scared.
It's like, really terrible.
Bill and
I mean, they're not really doing anything. Like, you got a bunch of them that's out running their mouths, but it's like, okay, you run your mouth, but what are you doing to make change? Like I'm glad that you're standing up and you're saying the words, but what are you doing to fix it?
Yeah, sometimes I'd rather them not try to fix, because how they want to fix things there's just a different ideology about how they feel that you have to govern. Like, I feel like Republicans, how they should want to govern is that you make the government as irrelevant as possible, and you try to empower the people to own their own lives. And the Democrats, they're like, no, we have to fix the things. But it's like your ideas of fixing things are causing harm. You're just empowering yourself in order to be able to fix things in my life. But we have a difference of opinion on what's best for me and my family. So
yeah. And one thing that the Republicans really need to do is they need to stop living in the past, and they need to start looking towards the future, because the Democrats are always 10 steps ahead of us.
That's true.
And they don't play by the rules. And it's so funny, because I was kind of scrolling through TikTok, and there's this guy that was live. I wasn't in his live, but when you scroll through and you find somebody's live, and it's so funny that he said that it's the Republicans that are not playing by the rules, and that we need to start playing dirty like they are. And I was like, what universe is this guy in?
I've heard that before, and that's crazy. I don't know what they think that they're doing that I don't know. It's just that they're not paying attention.
They
Every crushing of norm is what they do, and it's so funny because they wanted to elect Biden to restore the norms, but it's
Mhm.
like I said earlier, he's the one who invented borking. Like the Supreme Court, you would normally just vote in people who had the credentials, and then he
Mhm.
made a thing about, well, you have to have the right character, you have to believe in the certain values that we want and the philosophies in order to advance what we think you should. It's like, no, they're supposed to interpret the law. That's what they're supposed
Yeah,
to
they're
do.
supposed to be apolitical. Like they and they're not. We got a lot of people in the Supreme Court right now that are just like, you know, you're supposed to be interpreting the laws and saying what violates and what doesn't, and take politics and your personal beliefs out of it. And there's a lot of that's not doing that anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, there was that opinion when it was like five, maybe it was 6-3, but it should have been 9-0. When it was like some churches and synagogues and stuff got together to sue New York for not allowing them to let more people in their churches and stuff.
Mhm.
And then they tried to pull back the order and be like, well, it's irrelevant now. And they're like, we're not stupid. You're just going to put it back in place after we drop the case. So it went all the way to Supreme Court. And so, like Kagan and stuff, I don't know, remember who wrote the dissenting opinion, but basically it's like, well, the public health and they're doing, the government needs to save people, and it's like, no, that's not what you're supposed to be looking at. That's not your
Yeah.
concern. That's not how you should be ruling us. And that is your opinion. It is your
Mhm.
opinion that they're doing what's best for it. That is an opinion.
Yeah. And people really need to realize that, the government, we shouldn't be depending on the government to help us on things.
They're
The
very bad.
government there is supposed to be governing and making sure, that people aren't being mistreated, and make sure that we got the budgets that we need. But as far as like actually impacting our everyday life, like all these Democrats that want socialism, like you that's not how that works. Like you shouldn't want the government to be giving you these things. Like I actually had somebody come at me not too long ago, was like, "Oh, you're military?" Like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, well, how's that free education?" I serve my country. It's not free. Like I raised my right hand to serve the nation. You don't think I deserve an education for that? And I knew what they were getting at, because they want, they all want free education, but it's like you can't take the handouts. Like you shouldn't. You have to work for what you get, and
Yeah.
people don't do that anymore. Like there's no such thing as like hard work for at least these younger generation. It's like
They
we're in
they
trouble.
they resent that, and they resent the fact that you think that they should need have to work hard.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I saw a video, it was an ad for like Amazon, and they had like a montage, a monologue from some character from some show that they have, and it was a cheerleader. She was black, and she was talking about my body, and I'm just like, and they're like showing all these other clips of their TV shows to kind of make the point and emphasize it or whatever. And I was just thinking about it. I'm just like, all these people making this, like, I'm 17, my body. I'm just like, you're gonna be in your parents' health insurance until you're 25.
Yeah.
Like, you're not an adult, and it's just like they just want to empower people to have no, I don't know, opinion about what to actually do for the benefit of society,
Hmm.
or to have any sort of, I don't know, responsibility to anyone other than themselves, and just believe that, like, there's a, where is it in the Bible, and it's like the in the last days, like, people will be lovers of themselves rather than lovers of God. And it's just like,
Hmm.
that's where we are. Like, people are so invested in themselves,
Yeah.
making themselves into an idol.
Yeah. I mean, you said it earlier with like, people wanting to push like the mask and the vaccine on people. It's not because they're trying to, exercise like love thy neighbors, because they're being selfish, and it's making them feel good to try to push something on somebody and think that they're making some sort of a difference by, I don't know. It's people.
Yeah. Well, I guess the last thing I want to ask you before we get going is, how is the, like, the mandates with the vaccine push with the military? Is that still going strong, or is that?
So, it's not mandated yet. It's supposed to be September 15th is when they're going to mandate. Hi, Huron. Um, unless they approve it by, FDA prior to. So I know that there's a lot of lawsuits that are out right now to try to protect the military members. I'm not really concerned for myself, because I have my own, medical exemption and stuff, but it's other people. And I've never really felt that non-sterile vaccine should be forced on anybody, like smallpox, or not smallpox, well, I guess smallpox is one of them, polio, like vaccines like that. Okay, absolutely, let's mandate so that way we don't have these issues. But as far as like the flu shots forced on us, I hate the flu shot. Like I feel like it's a waste and it makes me
I've
sick.
never had one.
Yeah, I mean, we were forced to take the flu shot, and now they're going to force us to take the COVID shot, and it's like I don't really see the point, because one thing that we keep saying, like, follow the science, and they keep screaming that, but it's like okay, if you want to follow like the science and the statistics, so out of all the military members, you know how many military members and dependents passed away from COVID?
Mm-mm.
There's 26 military servicemen or women and 16 dependents out of over 2 million. So there's over 2 million, just a little over 2 million military members. That's active, reserve, National Guard, and that's across the different branches, a little over 2 million. So out of a little over 2 million, only 26 service members passed away. And I can't remember what they said, how many of those 26 had underlying issues. So if and it's sad. It's sad when anybody dies. That I'm not trying to minimize it at all, but if you look at the size of our force compared to those that were actually affected, there was, I think they said 200,000 full, or almost 200,000 fully recovered. Like they got COVID and fully recovered. So it's like, obviously we have a strong immune system based on all the other vaccines they push on us. So
Yeah.
I just don't think that this one should really, especially when it hasn't gone through the testing, because a lot of people, they want to use so I had a lot of people when that first came out, oh, you need to look at Doe versus Rumsfeld. You guys need to look at Doe versus Rumsfeld, because you're missing a very important piece of that. Yes, they said that you cannot force military, or you cannot mandate military to take a vaccine that is not FDA approved or is experimental, unless the president writes an executive order. That's the big part that they're all missing. So the president, if it's not FDA approved by September 15th, that's what Lloyd Austin was getting at. He's going to ask for the president to write an executive order, because then they can. And then other people want to compare, oh, well, we were experimented on with the anthrax vaccine. Well, we weren't experimented on, because the anthrax vaccine's been licensed since 1970. If you guys actually read the research, and you'd understand that the FDA pulled their approval because the company that was producing it had made some changes to their manufacturing process that were not FDA approved. So nothing, like, none of the ingredients changed, none of that changed. It was just like the way they were manufacturing it. They I guess changed that. But then they put it under emergency use authorization. Then that's when it got forced on the military, because there was an executive order. That's why some people got kicked out and was court-martialed for not taking the vaccine. So, like, people just really need to look further into the information that they're trying to pass on, instead of just taking the word of a TikToker that they saw, like, that just gave you a little snippet.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. It'll be interesting.
Well, I have a relative that works at the post office, and so when they're going to start doing federal mandates of it, like federal employees will have to do it. I asked about it, and they're like, our union said that they're not doing that. They're not doing that. And so I looked it up, because I didn't want to even mention it unless it was like public information. So I Googled it, and there were unions going, we're not doing that. Like, we believe in the vaccine, but we believe in our rights to not do that. And so I'm like, if they can't even make the post office do that,
Yeah.
you guys are going to force the veterans to do that.
That's actually really shocking, because I've always heard that unions are predominantly ran by, like, Democrats.
They are, which, so it's funny, because so if they're against it and they want to push back, I wonder how the are they going to get in line with the pecking order, or the Democrats who are trying to appease the unions because they want their votes always going to get with the pecking order? I'm curious if Biden's going to back off of it.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I don't know. That's really interesting. And then the Marine General Berger, he straight up told President he's not going to mandate his Marines. So I think if we had more of that, more people standing up saying we're not going to mandate that, because they shouldn't be. Like, nobody should be forced to do anything they don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with something that hasn't been fully tested.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, Biden will just decide to do what he's going to do. This is another interesting point. I guess I want to run by you because I was thinking about just everything that's happened, and I'm just like, even if Trump was going to do something that was like boneheaded, is just how the pullout happened. I feel like people wouldn't have let him. Like it
Hmm.
would have got leaked to the press. There would have been stories all over the place. They would have ran to Mitt Romney,
Yeah.
Liz Cheney, and they would have been like, "We got to pitch you again, bruh." Like,
Yeah, like they would have. Oh, he would have been under so much fire if this. I mean, I would like to believe that he would have had an actual exit strategy.
yeah,
I know
I
the
don't believe
pen.
he would have done it. But if he was in that position, he was going to do something that would have been this disastrous. I strongly feel that people would not have let him do it. So I'm just,
No,
how did this happen with Biden?
I honestly I don't know. Like there's word that the Pentagon's backtrack and say, "Oh, we had reports that this was happening," and like they're pretty much saying that the president ignored them, and it's like, if you guys were advising him correctly, because that's their job is to advise the commander in chief to make these decisions so that things like this don't happen. Like, I got it, he's the president of the United States, but he's not the subject matter expert on all things the United States. Like,
Mhm.
that's what the advisors are for. So I'm wondering, like, was he advised and did he actually ignore them, or was he not advised? And I know a lot of people are trying to backtrack, say, "Oh no, we advised them," and I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Like,
I'm sure he was advised. I'm sure he had to have known because they knew that before. I mean, this isn't his first administration. He was the vice president during the Obama, administration, and they knew that Obama campaigned on pulling out. They couldn't do that because of the information that they have. That it just would have led
mhm,
to disaster. Same thing with Trump. He just wanted to pull out, but he said like the results of what would happen would be unacceptable.
mhm.
It's happening now. And so I think ultimately, but Biden didn't care, but they must have gave him information because you had the press pushing back on him like a month ago, and they're like, your own intelligence is saying that the Taliban's going to fall, and this will be like Saigon.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, that's not true. That's not true. And so I think he was lying then. And
Oh yeah.
and when he told George Stephanopoulos that I've calculated this, and I think that was true because what I read from the political article, he knew what was going to happen. He just wanted
Mhm.
to pull out, and at
Yeah.
the end of the day, they think that they can get away with it.
Mhm.
I pray to God they're wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think that, like, you anybody, even if you're not part of the intelligence committee, you'd know that if you just pull out without a plan, that something bad is going to happen. To at least to the people that got left behind. And I just find it really hard to believe that he. I mean, obviously he knew, but it's like, why was nobody advising him, saying, "Hey, Mr. President, you should probably, we should probably come up with an exit strategy. We can't just leave all of our stuff and leave all those people." Like, did nobody say that to him? Like, somebody had to have said that.
I'm sure they did, but I'm just like, why did they? I know he's the president, but it's like, but there's so many lives on the line, and Trump's White House was so leaky. Like,
Hmm.
why such devotion to allowing this dude to let all this happen the way that it happened without like I don't know. Like I said, if it was with Trump, they would have had leaked it out to the press. They would have had like Mitt Romney, other people been like, we got to do.
Hmm.
I mean, when Trump was talking about pulling out earlier, there was that story that wasn't true about the Russian bounty story, and Liz Cheney
Hmm.
was going all around pushing that so they could defund his pullout.
Yeah. So this is like, I guess, a conspiracy theory, because this is kind of where my thought process has been. This is not at in any way, shape, or form any, like, actual, what's the word I'm looking for?
Credible intelligence.
Credible intelligence. This is just what's in Jen's head. Is, I think it was done on purpose, because if you look back at the deal that we made to bring back an actual traitor, Bo Bergdahl,
Mm-hmm.
and who we traded him for, they're over there in the presidential palace running the show. I think that this was done on purpose, and I just don't know who it was done on purpose for, whether it be China, Russia, our people. I don't know, but I feel like it was all done on purpose. And because you had to have known, like I said, it doesn't take an intelligence expert to know that if you pull out of a country where we've been for 20 years, that, bad things are going to happen to the people that we leave behind without a proper strategy. you know.
Yeah.
So I think it was done on purpose.
Well, I don't know to what degree that obviously it was done on purpose, but to what degree and how big does the web goes? Because he obviously knew for years what would happen if they would just pull out in this sort of way, and he must have had the intelligence. So to what end, I don't know.
I have no idea. And that's the thing with like the world elites. It's not just Democrat, Republican. It's these world elites that are actually running the show on everything. Like they are legitimately 10 to 20 steps ahead of the rest of us, and we don't know what their end game is. Like, everybody wants to say new world order and all this stuff, and it's like, you kind of like, there's no way. But then you start looking at some of the things that's happening. It's like,
I think who has like mentioned new world order? I think that's been like a phrase that's been uttered. Like,
yeah.
So it's not that crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not really that far fetched. I don't know. Like I know there's a lot of players, especially like a lot of cultural things that are pushing a Marxist agenda. I don't know. I'm not saying that I think Biden is like trying to push for that, but there's obviously a lot of levers at play to take down America. And I don't know. I think Biden is just someone from his entire career. He's someone who's a sellout. Like he'll like to the like they'd have him working on legislation for banks and stuff while he's like in the bed with the banks, like doing like credit stuff. And his son with the board of Burisma and all that other kind of stuff is like obviously want to access. So what do they think that they're paying for?
Yeah.
Like those are the questions we need to ask that they didn't care about asking on the campaign trail. It kills me that they did not have a foreign policy debate. It seems really relevant now.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't even think about that. I'm really surprised that they didn't either, especially considering that Trump made this deal last year.
Trump really, really, really wanted a foreign policy debate, and they wouldn't do, obviously because that would have been a strength of his because they had deals and all that. They were announcing all that kind of stuff. And so, what was the final debate? They talked a little bit about energy and the economy and stuff, but they sure did have a big section on racism, which they addressed in like the other debate. And then they're like, Trump, they're having these private talks with their families about how to react to police and stuff. How do you feel as a racist? Like, like it felt along those lines, which I thought most of it was kind of fair, but how they did the race questions was not, because it's like, well, you said this, blah, 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 blah. And then it's like, Joe Biden, what do you think about Trump being a racist?
Yeah. Obviously it was with the moderators. Like we know that it was very biased. Extremely biased.
But it's egregious that they never mentioned the "you ain't black" comment, for example, but Trump didn't mention it either. That grinded my gears. I was so mad at him.
Yeah.
He messed up.
He and he really did. And that's so one thing, like I wish he would have done had he spent more time campaigning that last year and pushing candidates for Senate and Congress and the House of Representatives. Had he done more of that versus screaming about they're going to cheat, it's election fraud, like had he done more of that, I think it might have been a possibility to have a better outcome, or at least more. But he should have put his name behind a lot more people and pushed like what he's doing now. Like when he started his rally, I watched the rally up in Ohio. I wasn't there, but I watched it on, I think, Newsmax or something. But the fact that of course he's going to talk about election fraud, but he spent a lot of that time throwing his support behind the, dang it, I can't think of what his name is now, but throwing his support behind these different candidates. It's like if he would have done more of that than, screaming and crying that they're going to cheat, then I think we would have at least in the House and the Senate, we would have maybe had a different outcome.
Yeah, well, there was some stuff that he was saying that freaked people out. So, like when he started talking about the mail-in ballots and stuff, that like the RNC had a really good like program for like absentee ballots. Killed the program, just killed it. Like I was talking to this one clerk, a good friend of mine, and she said you had Republicans coming in to turn in just like their blank application, like we don't want it. She's just kind of thinking like, what if something happens? And in my family, we always just go to the polls to vote. But my dad was actually really sick. He caught COVID. He had to go in the hospital the day after the election. He couldn't even end up voting. So I guess I understand, because I did try to get him emergency ballot like last second. And they're like, no, we sent you a ballot. I'm like, and they seem really hostile. I'm like, I guess that's why, because they were dealing with, I don't know, probably angsty Republicans, I guess. But yeah, there was definitely mistakes made. And I think we spend so much time talking about election integrity and stuff that we don't actually mention the things that went awry. And I think Republicans need to really do better at that, for sure. But I enjoyed my time talking to you. I'm gonna have to wrap it up, and I didn't mean to talk for quite this long anyway. But it's always a pleasure. It's always
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. I hope I was able to answer any questions that you had, and any questions that maybe anybody else was thinking. Like I said, it's a hot mess, and a lot of us are very, very discouraged and sad and heartbroken, and just it's a roller coaster of emotions right now.
Yeah, well, a song came to mind. I'm not about to sing it though. I'll have to just send it to you.
Okay.
Be encouraged. Actually, I don't know if I know who did it. I just know our praise team sang it. But yeah, anyway, I'll try to figure it out.
Yeah.
I'll try to figure it out. But be encouraged. And I'm going to close out, but I'm going to let you go. And if you don't follow Jen on TikTok, follow her on TikTok. And you have a YouTube page, and you have a Spotify and
Yep, I do my podcast every Tuesday at 7 p.m. We are doing a special Saturday at 7 p.m. This is where I'm going to have a big panel of military to talk about Afghanistan. So that might be actually interesting to hear the different viewpoints from different branches and different rank structures and different jobs. So if you guys want to tune in for that, there's that.
All right. Well, thank you again. And it's not the last time for sure.
Definitely not. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll be in touch.
All right.
Okay, thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Please make sure you visit blacktnews.com, that you check out the content that I have, different articles that I have. If you would like to donate to blacktnews.com, you can go to blacktnews.com/donate. If you like what I'm doing here on the website with the videos and so on, please consider giving a donation. And then check out the different merchandise that we got at the store. Pick out something for yourself, for your friends, for your family. Make sure that you buy something that you trigger a leftist, especially like this "You Are Not That Special" shirt. Really, you could give that to a lot of people who's into the critical race theory stuff. Like, you guys are just not that special. To think the whole world revolves around what you think it should. But anyway, God bless you guys, and I will